holds every echo.
Iran is at the center of a war right now. The United States and Israel launched massive airstrikes across Iran. Hundreds of targets were hit in a single day. Military bases, missile systems, leadership, and Iran responded. Missiles, drones, attacks across Israel and U.S. bases in the Middle East. This is no longer hidden. It is open war. Cities are being hit. People are fleeing. Global tension is rising. But this didn't just start now. This has been building for years. Iran and Israel have been enemies since 1979. They fought through proxies, through hidden operations, through indirect strikes, until now. Now it is direct. And this is where it becomes important, because what is happening today follows something older, much older. Before Iran was called Iran, it was Persia, and Persia is written clearly in the Bible, not as a random nation, but as part of a plan. In Ezekiel 38, Persia is listed inside a future alliance. Not confusion, not chaos, but structure. A group of nations moving together. Then, in Jeremiah 49, a specific part of Persia is mentioned, Elam, and something very direct is described. First, its power is broken. Second, disaster strikes. Third, people are scattered. Fourth, restoration comes later. That is not just history. That is a sequence. Now look at Iran today. Iran's greatest strength is its missiles, long-range weapons, hidden launch systems spread across the country. And what were the first targets in this war? Missile bases, weapons systems, military infrastructure. That matches the first stage. Then comes the next part, disruption. Right now, airstrikes are ongoing. Cities are under pressure. People are already evacuating. This is not the end. It looks like the beginning. And if this continues, it could move to the next stage, wider damage, mass movement of people, regional collapse. But here is what makes this different. The Bible does not end Iran's story with destruction. It says something comes after, a return, a change, a transformation, which means what we are seeing right now may not be the full picture, just the early stage. And that leads to one question. Is this war the beginning of the end for Iran, or the beginning of something that will reshape it completely?
What makes Iran dangerous today is not just its size, it's its weapons. Iran has built one of the largest missile systems in the Middle East. Thousands of rockets, long-range missiles, hidden launch sites across the country. Some are placed underground, some are mobile, some can reach Israel, some can reach U.S. bases. This is Iran's main strength. Now go back to the Bible. In Jeremiah 49, when Elam is mentioned, there is one detail that stands out: the bow. God says he will break the bow of Elam. At that time, the bow was their strongest weapon. It was how they fought, how they attacked from a distance, how they projected power. Now think about today. What is the modern version of a bow? Missiles. Same purpose, different technology. They travel far. They strike from a distance. They are hard to stop. And that changes how you read the prophecy. Because breaking the bow means removing the ability to strike, not just damage, but disabling power. Now look again at what is happening. The first targets hit in Iran: missile systems, launch bases, weapons storage. Not random, strategic. Because once those are weakened, everything else becomes vulnerable. And this is where the pattern becomes clearer. Ancient Elam was known for one thing: archers. They supplied powerful empires. They were specialists in long-range attacks. Today, Iran supplies missiles and drones across the region to groups in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iraq. This is not new behavior. It's the same role, just modern. And this is why Iran is not fighting alone. It has influence, networks, connections. What looks like separate conflicts are actually linked. And that is exactly what Ezekiel described. Not one nation acting alone, but a group aligned, moving together. Now go back to the sequence. First, the
bow is broken. Second, disaster begins. If the first stage is already happening, then what comes next becomes important. Because once weapons are weakened, the next target is stability. And we are starting to see that. Pressure on cities, strikes on infrastructure, fear spreading among civilians. And when that increases, people move. They leave. They scatter. That is the next stage. And it doesn't take long for that to happen in war. But here is the part most people ignore. This is not random destruction. It follows order, step by step. And if the first step is already visible, then the rest may not be far behind. Which raises a serious question. If Iran's power is being broken, what happens when the pressure reaches its peak?
If the first stage is the weakening of power, then the next stage is disruption. Not small damage, not temporary tension, real disruption. The kind that spreads, the kind that forces change. Now go back again to Jeremiah 49. After the bow is broken, something else happens. I will bring the four winds and scatter them. That means movement. People leaving, people fleeing, people forced out of where they once felt secure. Now bring that into today. Because Iran is not just a country, it is a system built on energy, oil, infrastructure, and control. And there is one region that matters more than most, Khuzestan. This is the heart of Iran's oil industry, refineries, pipelines, energy centers. This is where a large part of Iran's economy is held together. Now think carefully. If a war begins to damage that region, the effect is not local. It spreads. Oil supply is affected. Economy weakens. Pressure increases internally. And when pressure builds inside a country, people move. They leave danger zones. They search for safety. And that is exactly what the prophecy describes. Not just attack, but scattering. Now look at what we're starting to see. Airstrikes are increasing. Key locations are being targeted. Tension is rising inside the country. This is how disruption begins. Slow at first, then suddenly everywhere. And here is what makes it more serious. Modern warfare moves faster than ancient wars. What took years before can now happen in days. Missiles, drones, cyber attacks, everything accelerates. So if this pattern continues, the shift from pressure to full disruption could happen quickly. And once that line is crossed, control becomes difficult. Now remember, this is not just about destruction, because the prophecy does not stop there. It continues. After scattering, something unexpected is mentioned: restoration, which means even after collapse, the story is not over. And that creates a different kind of tension, because now the question is not just, will Iran fall, but what will it become after? Because if a nation goes through broken power, disruption, scattering, and still returns, then what comes back is not the same as what existed before. And that is where everything changes, because now you're not just watching a war, you're watching transformation begin. If the pattern continues, then the final stage is not destruction, it is change, deep change, the kind that reshapes a nation from the inside out. Go back one last time to Jeremiah 49. After the breaking, after the disaster, after the scattering, something unexpected is said. I will set my throne in Elam, and then I will restore them in the latter days. That is not the end of a nation. That is a reset, which means what happens to Iran is not just about war. It is about transformation. But before restoration comes, something else must happen: leadership change. The prophecy speaks about removing kings and rulers. That means the system in place does not remain. Now look at today. Iran is not just a country. It is controlled by a strong leadership structure. Political power, military command, religious authority. Everything is connected. So if that structure is shaken, it doesn't create small change. It creates total change. And that is what makes this stage different from the others. Because breaking weapons is one thing, damaging infrastructure is another, but changing leadership changes everything. Now connect all the stages together. First, power is weakened. Second, disruption spreads. Third, people are scattered. Fourth, leadership is removed. Fifth, restoration begins. That is not random. That is a process. And when you compare that process to what is happening now, the early stages are already visible, which means something important. We may not be watching the end. We may be watching the beginning of a full transformation. And this is where most people make a mistake. They look for a final moment, a single event, something clear. But this doesn't happen that way. It builds step by step, stage by stage. And only after everything has unfolded does it make sense. Which brings us back to the present. Iran is under pressure. War is active. Global powers are involved. But none of this answers the final question. Because the real question is not just what is happening now. It is, what is this leading to? Because if this follows the pattern, then Iran does not simply disappear. It changes. And that may be the most important part of all. Not knowing exactly how it ends, but recognizing that it is moving right now. And that leads to one final question. Is this war the end of Iran or the beginning of what it is about to become?